Chasin the Racin, powered by Colchester Kawasaki. Part of the Global Moto Group, we supply new Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Sim, Mutt and Benelli motorcycles.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasin the Racin. And I'm really excited about our guest, but our co-host for this evening, yet again, the only one we can get over on the Isle of Man. And lucky for us, your flight got cancelled, so we've been able to
got cancelled
tonight. Hopefully no one sees that one. But no, we have an incredible, we have a 2-time TT winner, Macau racer, you've Australian champion. We have also the most important fact, not only is commentator, he's the world's fastest plumber. The world's fastest plumber, Cameron Donald. How we doing, mate?
Good. I'm not plumbing these days. I've been off the plumbing tools for a few years. I'm concreting now, so.
All right.
Yeah, for the last 6 years. Something different.
So what made you, first question straight in, what made you get sick of plumbing?
I don't know. One of my best mates is a concreter. And I went and did a couple of days for him, saw how much money they were earning, and changed trades pretty much. Sort of running my own thing now, and it's it's probably easier to come and go.
Yeah.
When I still juggle quite a bit of bike testing, coaching, commentary work, although that's dried up a bit on our side of the world. But, other things where, concreting jobs are usually short and sharp, get in, get out. So it's a little bit easier to work around the couple of bits and pieces I still do with bikes in between.
Damn right, keeping it going. So I'll tell you what, again, the best thing about the world that we live in now, you can Google someone. Just Google the shit out of someone. And what I'm looking forward to hearing about is, and we always talk about this on the show, it's because we're in the circle, we know your task, your Wilson Craig days, your TT wins, and we all know that, and probably most of our fan base knows of that. But your dirt tracking. Was that flat track or motocross? What was the crack there?
Yeah, flat track, which it's sort of dirt track in Australia. I think it's a bit like it is here in the UK. It's a little bit of a hybrid. It's just modified motocross bikes. And down south where we are, Victoria, New South and whatnot, we run a lot of the tracks are real motocross setup. So 21-inch front wheel, 19-inch rear, which is a bit different. And they do have now a class just for 19s, front and rear without the front brake, more an American style, but I still ride mostly that kind of flat track, which I still do, and that's what I started off doing. That's what got me into racing, and I still think it's one of the best groundings for road racing anyway.
It's got super popular over here, hasn't it, in the last 10 years. It's just we had in the UK, I'd never really heard of it when I was younger and racing, and now everyone seems to be flat tracking. It's got really popular, but you guys have been at it for a long time. American lads have been at it for a long time as well, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I look back Broadford, it's my local circuit, and it's actually our state motorcycle complex. So it's got a speedway, dirt track, road race, circuit, motocross, all on one property. It's quite amazing.
Oh, wow. And miles behind these aren't we?
Yeah. So it's pretty cool, and it's hour and a half out of Melbourne, but I used to go up, there'd be a dirt track the last Sunday of every month. And I remember when I first started dirt tracking in seniors when I was 15 and I got on a 125. And I remember an all-powers final I qualified on the 125 for. And on that same gate was Anthony Govert. And these are some names some of you may remember, like Kurt McCarthy, that was a top rider, did World Championship. Marty Craggle was another rider, done World Championship and AMA, and just, the names that were coming, all those guys in the off-season would flat track. So, and they're nearly all in their background before they were, was flat track. And even the young kids coming through now, they're all ex-flat trackers. Flat track's big in Australia, big in country areas and whatnot. So, yeah, it's just a great grounding. It's such high intensity, high speed. And most of all, I always say it teaches you to slide the front as well as the back, which is the big key to going fast on the bitumen, I guess.
I love this. I'm already delving into the technical side of it. I love it. But as far as even going back further than that, was it the father element? You know what I mean? What was the family like? Was it always bike race for you, or were you the first one to break the mold?
Not at all. So pop road bikes when my dad grew up, and my dad was quite old for my age. So, it was all commie bikes, British bikes.
Quite old for your age. What you mean, in firmer bikes, or was he just?
He was a late achiever. So he grew up around old British bikes, and he was an only child, but his parents, all they had was a motorbike and sidecar. That was the family transport. And not because it was a hip thing to do, we got a sidecar now because it's cool, but back then it's all they could afford. Then when he started, he was a diesel fitter, a mechanic. He worked, and all he wanted to do was race, and he had a race bike. He had no form of transport because he couldn't afford anything else. He had a push bike and his race bike.
Yeah.
So, he really did it tough. All he wanted to do was race, and he only got to race a little bit because he had no money, but he lived and breathed bikes, and so did, all my family, really. So my brothers raced motocross, junior motocross, but they were a lot older than me. It's like quite a big age gap. So
go on for like, we talked 10 years?
Yeah, about that. I'm so bad with numbers, but yeah, it's about 10 years. So big age gap. So yeah, that's why I was the afterthought. I've come along. So my two brothers were racing motocross. They were A-grade junior motocross racers. Dad was doing the whole driving around the state. And then my oldest brother got to that sort of 16. My other brother was 14. They started going out, maybe drinking.
Yeah.
Smoking weed, getting up to mischief. And I think I still remember it as a kid. It was pretty full on. Like I remember one morning getting up and like one of my brothers hadn't come home. The other one didn't want to get out of bed. And Dad was like, I'm done. That's it. I don't want to race it. Yeah, I'm not tipping money in for this if you're not. He wasn't a pushy dad. They just wanted to race. He supported him, but he was like, nah. So they stopped racing. My oldest brother came back to road racing on his own accord later and did very well. But anyway, that was right at the age that I put my hand up and said, I want it. And Dad was like, no, been down this road before. No, we're not doing this. He goes, you can race when you're old enough to work. So no complaints. Family had 20 acres down the road, always had bikes, hand-me-downs, bikes in the shed. So rode from a very young age and rode all the time, always knowing I wanted to race. But then I was 15 and I got a job at the local bike shop and came home and said, I'm dropping out of school. I got a job at the bike shop. Then they realised how serious, Dad realised how serious I was to race. But that's my story of before me. So bikes were definitely in my blood. And, it's a story I tell often, but when I look back, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because I was 15 and I realised, my oldest brother then had come back to road racing. He was riding 250 GP, A-grade and doing, he was top 3 in the country, but he was like, you've got a chance here, grab it, Getting drunk, getting high, it's going to feel the same when you're 30 as when you're 20, but you can't win world championships or start racing when you're 30. He's like, you're 15, grab this with both hands, and it was sort of good advice.
In the motocross element, how good were your brothers?
Motocross are A-graders, so in juniors, but I mean, still A-grade in Australia is bloody, they were.
No, but even so, I grew up watching my dad race, and you only focus on what you love in that way, don't you? Like my dad, there was no one else on track but my dad, and that side of things. But you being such a young age, seeing your brothers at a considerably older age, was that quite impacting that you thought you're just pissing away a chance here?
In retrospective, but at the time, I was too busy in the pits cleaning their boots and doing stuff that they would say, do this and one day you'll get my bike as a hand-me-down, and just dangling the carrot to get me to be a little pit slave, which I did because I was in awe of them. They were my absolute heroes, But then I remember when I was a little bit older, I remember we had the XR100 down the paddock and my brothers were like, we'll do time trials and set out a little loop. And I was very young, and by that time they were, but I was right on them and I wanted to beat them so bad. So that was my drive.
Just with that gap, it's just like, when you see people pissing away a chance. Yeah. It's interesting to see, hold on, Dad's doing this for you, and you're still at 15, you're having to get a job. Was that more of a grind of going? Yeah, it was. I mean, I hated school. It was the main reason I got a job, but it was a bonus to go racing. But I definitely knew, I'll tell you one thing I knew, that my dad was a man of his word. And if I stuffed around, I was on my ear. That was it. Dad was like, I'll match what you're putting in. I think that's a deal we came to. So he said, you put in every cent you earn, I'll make up the difference. But the minute you start taking your eye off the ball, it's done. Yeah. And that wasn't about, let's go win championships. Dad was like, let's go and have fun. All he ever said was do your best, But it was also like, we're spending a lot of money doing this. So started dirt tracking, and I went to seniors at 15 and I won a state title and I was doing very well. And basically we're at a point where I was like, well, what am I going to do? So at the time I didn't know whether I wanted to go racing speedway or road racing. I was quite keen on speedway because they quite often shared tracks with us. Like we'd do a full loop, the speedway would do the short track. Yeah. And then my brother, once I said, again, he'd come back on his own accord road racing, and he'd got to A-grade in that and was doing very well. So we started going to watch a few road races. So it was like bang. And the career went that way. It was just like, I've got to go road racing. Right. 125 GP, 250 production. That's how we started. So for the listeners element, it's like we have short circuits and then road racing being the TT and stuff. Was this short circuits in Australia? Yeah, because we've got no road racing at all. No road racing at all. No streets. They're done back in old man's day. So they used to have it then? Yeah, used to a lot. If you look up Bathurst, it's iconic. That was amazing. A lot of the big names from UK, Europe came out to do Bathurst, and you still see the cars there. It's an insane
closed public road course. I can't imagine what it would have been like on bikes. Mass start back then, like 50 bikes on a grid,
Holy
60
crap.
sometimes.
How big was the lap?
I think it's about 6 or 8 Ks. And you want to see, it's got the hill, the chase they call it, it's considerably steeper than the corkscrew at Laguna Seca. So like it's off the hook. But anyway,
I want to go.
yeah. Kaz and I did some parade laps around there in a sidecar last year. Yeah, that was
Something
daunting.
else, yeah.
So that's another story. But so just wanting to get on the road, and then 125 GP was an achievable, affordable way to do it. And that was good because it taught me a lot about mechanics, and plus I was a flat tracker, and to get on road and then try to ride a 125 that way, you know, I fired the thing up the road a fair few times before I worked out.
So when you were doing flat track, would you have been riding 4 strokes or 2 strokes at that time?
I rode 2 strokes. They were still, 125 and then 250, and then I went through the transition of when, at the time, the fastest things out there, they were 500s.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the 4 strokes soon took over. But, change of an era.
Ruined everything. You can see him biting his lip when he said that, like, bloody 4 strokes.
Yeah, I mean, I've got them now, but I've still got a few 2 strokes in the garage. You'll never give them up, You've
got to keep it on.
Yeah.
So, like, at what point, you've gone from the dirt tracking element, and then your brothers stepped up in the 250 GPs, high end short circuits. At what age were you, or at what point did the TT in road racing get onto your radar? Was your dad watching it? What was the story there?
Well, basically, I think a long story short was my dad was a bit older, and my great uncle and all that, my grandfather, they talked about the TT. Any rider, any bike that had done anything had to have done it at the TT or something. So I'd always heard about the Isle of Man. I'd heard about Manx Nortons. I'd heard about all this. I knew of it and well aware of it. And then I heard of Joey Dunlop, and I'd seen some onboards, and it's crazy, but never considered it, never thought I'd ever go down that road. I was always like, back then my goal was World Superbikes. It was my dream.
Well, sorry, I'm interrupting you there. So, when you did your first 125s, you're firing on the road. Let's go down that road element.
Yep.
So, was that a very, I want to be world champion? Was that your mindset?
Very much so. Yep.
That this was 15 kind of thing?
15, 16. So a late starter, although then it wasn't. But yeah, 100%. My game was, I want to be world superbike champion. That was my absolute goal. I knew I wanted to get on a 600. I wanted to get on production bikes. Because even by then I realised GP was very hard to do without money.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't have money. So I knew that that was tough. So it was just that was my goal. And then I went 250 production, back RGV, and Aprilia 250 days, which was huge in Australia. When you look back in Australia, anyone that did anything came through 250 production. Yeah. They'd take about 60 entries for 40 to qualify. It's a bit like Superstock 1000 now, and, like a second covering the top 10, 15, whatever. So it was really, really red hot. So that was a good way. That gave me a good grounding. And then it was actually when I got on a 600, a good friend at home, he got contacted by someone that needed a fill-in for Macau. So that was my introduction to road racing. So,
shut up, man.
No, so then I turned up at Macau, and that was sort of pre-YouTube, so I had no idea what I was...
You hadn't watched it, you hadn't seen it.
No, I knew it was a street race, but...
What? Yeah, there's different level.
Okay, what age was this?
Oh, by that time I was in my young 20s when I did...
Okay, young 20s. So let's talk about a little bit home life. I'm trying to figure out, were you still living at home at this point?
Yeah.
Right, still living at home. You've walked through the door. Someone's jumped out. Dad, I'm off to Macau. Talk me through that moment.
Yeah, well, pretty much. Well, Rod Tingate was the guy, and he was a mechanic for Yamaha European Grand Prix days in the 70s and 80s. So he'd spent a lot of time racing, and he'd helped me a bit. He lived up the road, and his son was a good mate of mine that we raced together. And a team had contacted me, said, had a rider hurt. Does he want to do Macau? Rod didn't know that much about it either. So he was like, there's this race, they'll fly us over. Do you want to have a crack? It's a street race. I was like, yeah, it sounds good. I always rode on the road anyway. So that's I probably differ from a lot of road racers. I always rode in the street. Like commuting on a DT 200 or, then I had a TRX 850 I used to blast around on. So but I love riding in the hills. So when I turned up at Macau, it was full on. Because we did a lap.
That is putting it bloody lightly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was for a Chinese team. So we went to mainland China and did some Bridgestone tyre testing at Zhuhai Circuit the week before. And then we came over on the ferry to Macau. And then when we did a lap, we're like, whoa. Yeah, so it was full. Yeah, it was full.
I can't even imagine doing that. Just rocking up there.
The thing is, people, that makes me laugh because obviously, like my first ever road race was down Bray Hill. People say that's nuts. Never in my wildest dreams would I thought someone's first road race would have been Macau. I thought that would have been that is...
Yeah, no, it was absolute madness.
This place must be like the Sahara Desert riding around compared to that.
I've told this story that many times that people may have heard, but true story. I came around in the cabin, I came in and I said to Rod, like, wow, how much air fence have they got to have to go around this track? Because I thought there'll be air fence, of course, but I thought it must be kilometres of the stuff. And then I came in from the first practice session and I said to one of my mechanics, this Chinese guy, I'm saying, where's the air fence? Like, there's no air fence. And he didn't speak English that well, spoke to the team boss. He came over, I told him, and then they start telling each other in Cantonese, and then they'll start laughing. And he's like, yeah, Donald. They were like, Donald, yeah, there's air between you and the fence. I thought it was hilarious. True story. And I was just like, far out, this is full on. But I got off on the buzz, and back then Supersport was quite a class at Macau. It dwindled, but they had Supersport and Superbike. So you're on a mixed grid. Right, but you had your own result. So, like, who was there on the 600? Callum Ramsey, if you remember him back in the day.
What were the lap times like? Sorry for interrupting you, but what were they like? Because I've always thought, because I've done Macau twice.
Yep.
And up on the San Francisco Hill on the back section.
Yeah.
That must have been pissing you right off.
Yeah, I was because I remember I was stuck behind. Now, whoever I got caught up behind, I came in and gave him an earful because he was slowing me up through the... And then on the straights... I'd do a big desperate under brakes into the hairpin or something, and then they'd smoke me down the seafront. Yeah. And it'd be like, flip.
It's literally a track that's half and half, Josh, you know what I mean? You've got, it's just straight, turn, straight, Lisboa, you know what I mean? And then, but the whole back section is like, on a big bike, it's like second, first.
Yeah, it's a handful, absolute handful.
It's like, boom, bam, bam, bam. And I've always thought, because when did this stop happening, the 600s at Macau?
Oh, I don't know, it was mid-2000s or something, I think.
Something like that.
But I won on debut on the 600, so it was big for me, and it was really big for the Chinese team, because they were a Chinese team at Macau. So I was like, yeah.
There'll be a statue, there'll be a waxwork somewhere in Macau.
I had a picture of one of the main newspapers in Macau. It was the back sports page. I had a half-page photo the next day, standing between a couple of...
And what year would that have been then?
Promo girls. I laugh, I still got the photo and I'm squinting. I look Chinese. I reckon they made me look Chinese.
You're getting a flashlight and putting in your eyes.
That was 2001.
Right.
All right, okay.
So it was early days. So yeah, I think I was 23 or something like that.
You won your first road race at the Macau Grand Prix. And wow.
And I'll tell you, I kid you not, because I think it was that year or the next year I went back and I was sitting next to, I knew who no one was. Like, I knew of DJ.
Yeah.
And I knew of some of the other riders. I was like, wow, I was in awe of, I'm actually at the same place as these guys, especially DJ, because I'd seen TT footage.
Yeah.
But I remember going on a bus to one of the functions and I'm sitting next to this old bloke back then. And I'm like, oh, who are you spanning for? And he's like, spanning, I'm a rider, you cheeky. And it was Rudder back then. Like, true. Because, at my age then, I was like, who's this bloke, And then, Michael's a good mate now and I've got all due respect for him. But at the time, I just didn't know. I was just
it's class.
Kid from Australia that knew. So it was just pre the big boom of YouTube where you could, like you said, Google anything.
Yeah.
Anything. So I was just a kid. And then I started asking, so what's the TT like? I remember speaking to John and some of these other riders and they started giving me a few,
And was that
Adrian Archibald, other guys that were the guns at the time were there. And I'm thinking, wow, shit, I've ridden this. Yeah, that was when the seed was planted.
And you thought, I'm a road racer now.
Yeah, well, I was still hoping to get to Superbike, but it was that gave me an opportunity to 2 years of Asian Championship. So that was championship no one hears about here. Malaysia, Indonesia, China, Thailand. Now they're doing India and the Middle East as well, but that is huge because bike sales in Asia Pacific region. So the manufacturers take it quite seriously. They're distributor-backed teams, quite a few of them with factory support, and riders you've never heard of, like some of the Thai and Malaysian riders. They're seriously good punters.
Good,
yeah. They don't travel well. That's why a lot of them...
I was wondering that, if you were going to compare it to British...
Yep.
To that, where would you put it? I know that's a hard comparison.
Yeah, it's not as deep. Britain is It's a blue rip, but in saying that, man, I'll tell you what, you take your top British guys to that Asian Championship now and have a look and Super Sport on their home tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, buckle up because they hit hard. Like they really are loose. They're so desperate. Right. But a lot of them don't transfer well from the smaller bikes to the bigger bikes.
Okay.
And they still don't seem to travel well. I mean that with all due respect. They're brilliant. But we see so often in GP what they'll do at a home race. But I think that, understandably so, moving to Europe, that difference in culture and diet, lack of family, whatnot, you know. You know what, some riders get a long way from home and they thrive and some struggle. And generally the Asian riders struggle. Yeah.
So you've done the 600 at this point. What was your first taste of the 1,000 of this? It seemed like a very quick progression from back at home tarmac, 125, 250, 600 production. What was your first taste of 1,000 like?
It was in Australia. They like a small team basically put me on an R1 to do like Formula Extreme. Back then there was 2 national championships. Or there was Australian Superbikes. Formula Extreme was a splinter series that ended up being a lot bigger than a national championship. Politics. But that was my first chance to ride a superbike. I'd been lucky because when I was racing in Asia, I did a lot of test days and coaching, and the guys over there had a couple of superbikes. So I'd done some laps around Johor, the old track that's now bulldozed in Malaysia, which was an insane ex-Grand Prix track. So I've done a fair few laps over there on a superbike. Yeah. And come to terms with, the monster that they were, and then...
I was wondering that because obviously you've gone from your second year at Macau, was that lining up in the 1,000 category?
No, I did a couple of years on 600.
Right, I was
had a couple of wins in 600 eventually. Had some great battles there. Stuart Easton was another one I had a cracker.
What a weapon he is.
Good battle with at Macau.
But my next question to you is how daunting would have Macau been if you jumped on 1,000 straight away? Would you be confident as a rider, or I thought, whoa, this would have been different?
Nah, I don't know because I'd done the TT before I went back to... Right. I never did Macau on 1,000 until I'd raced the TT. I didn't do it for years. Okay. So I dropped out. So then I went back for Bolliger Kawasaki that horse Saiga used to ride for in World Endurance.
Yeah.
So I went to race for them and it was a disaster. It had a World Endurance race at Clash. They sent the spare bike, and with all due respect to Bolly, the thing was a sled. Yeah. And we had a heap of issues with it, and it did a fork seal in the race, and it did so I had oil pouring out, and it was a disaster. Yeah. Then when I went to ride for Taz on the Relentless bike, and we'd had the results here, I was like, we got to go back to Macau. And I remember Philip saying, "Oh, it's going to cost us a lot of money, this, that, the other." I remember he called me up for a meeting, and I was sitting in his office, and he goes, "Just be frank with me," and look me straight in the eye. "How are we going to go?" And I just said, "Well, we're going to win it." And I was totally like, "We will win it." So he goes, "Okay, it's done." So we shook hands, and they sent the bike over. Qualified on the front row. I remember it was myself, Connor, and someone else, I think, on the front row. And Rudder, of course, because he was like Brazilian time winner. And I took the lead on the first lap, and I think I was up to lap 4 or 5, pulling over half a second a lap. And the thing, as I pulled onto the front straight, it just stopped.
Oh,
Turned out it was an engine fuse. The thing had overheated.
Oh, mate.
That was my one chance to win on the superbike. I never went back.
Right.
So that was Macau.
So,
anyway, that's a superbike. So it pisses me off that, because it would have been great to. But hey, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
But for it to actually happen, come onto the front straight. I'm looking at the pit board, and I'm just like, yep, it's you're riding the wheels off it, but you're just thinking, this is how it's meant to be, and the thing literally just went brrr and just coasted around the first turn and up against the wall.
Oh my god,
that was devastating.
That's how racing goes, isn't it?
Oh,
I tell you, on a total the different side note, it's I think, and what I know is, you have always been the quickest learner in bike racing. When you look through the history, because obviously you've gone from racing over in 600, you won the Macau and everything, and then we're not even got into the TT element, never mind the Irish championships and all those Irish, the thing is, when you've hit the ground, son, you're at the front. Would you say you're a natural quick learner?
It appears that way, but I'd like to think when I apply myself to something, it's at a quite obsessive level, so I'd like to think that, piss poor results from piss poor preparation. Coming back to Macau though, walking to the start of a race at Macau, the sickness I'd feel in my stomach was more intense than any TT. Like the intensity of that racetrack, a mass start through Armco, through city streets, there's something about it, whether it's amplified because you're so far from home, although for me, I'm a lot closer to home in Macau than I am at the Isle of Man, but I guess because everyone over here speaks the lingo and it's a little bit more like home, I feel more secure if I'm going to end up, busted up. But over there, it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I must say, quite daunting too. Like I raced in Asia and had a few big offs. And I remember, when you're laying in the gravel trap and you're in Indonesia, you're really thinking to yourself, where am I going to end up here? You know what I mean? I really feel a long way from home now, so... but anyway, Macau, just bouncing back to that, the intensity of that place is obscene. Like, and everyone talks it about like it's a jolly, and this wasn't for me because I was there racing for Asian teams, or I was there, I wasn't interested in the holiday, I wasn't interested in the crack. It was like, it's a race, we'll do the job.
And I need to win.
Yeah, but quick learning. Yeah, and like, the more I look back now, because I've got time to look back, like I look back and I look at the TT and what I'm more proud of in my whole racing life is my second year here. I came here as a newcomer. I came to the TT once as a spectator because I got a chance to do a couple of British Superbike rounds, and that was when the privateer team from Northern Ireland said, "Oh, the senior's on next Friday. Do you want to come?" I'm like, "TT's on now." Like, jokes aside, I didn't even know it was on. I was like, "No way." I remember ringing the old man saying, "Dad, I'm going to get to see the TT." He's like, "No way, son," So we come over in this little charter plane from Northern Ireland, and the day of the senior, and I think there was a 600 production race the morning of the senior. Ballagary, first lap. Bruce was one of the first guys that came past. And I remember turning to the guy saying, I've got to race this. Who do I need to speak to? Like, I won Macau 600, surely. And that's when I come up to the pit office and met Paul Phillips and only just started working with the event early days and just said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've done if anyone's looking for a rider. So came back. So I'd never done a complete lap of the course until I came back to race in 05. I'd done a couple of bits in the car, but I wouldn't have even done a quarter of the track. Went home, studied onboard laps. The guys at Macau, because I think I'd asked McGuinness, a couple of others, and they were like, I think it was McGuinness said, don't study a lap that's too fast. At the time, he was like, get a 118 lap or get, so, and break it down into sections. So I watched all the, just about all the VHS tape out, watching video, then came over in 05 as a newcomer and only rode a 600, which I think is brilliant for a newcomer too, to focus on one class.
Was that your choice?
Was all it was. Well, he got in touch and he goes, there's these boys, which is now TC Racing. At the time, Mick that ran that, he's an RAF engineer. Him and a couple of RAF mates were running that RAF sponsored team. They had a guy, Gordon Blackley, that was quite he'd done a bunch of TTs. He was going to stop racing. They were looking for someone else to put on their bike. And they were like...
That's where it came from.
Yeah, cover your running costs and come over. And I joke about it because I had no money. So I was like, what are my consumables? And they were like chain sprockets, brake pads, blah, blah, blah. I got it all from home because I was working at a bike shop. Turned up with my suitcase and said, here's the... I was just like, you're kidding me.
Here's the goods, let's go.
And then when they first told me, I didn't even know about Alf Fuel. And they were like, it's what, how many pound a litre? And I'm like, yeah, I can't afford that. And they were like, well, that's what we run the bike. And I'm like, I cannot afford that, guys. I'm so sorry. So begrudgingly, they were putting pump fuel in it. And because I was like, I can't afford that. It was like 3 to 1, the Australian dollar. I was like, it's 8 Australian dollars a litre it was going to cost me to run 4T. So I was like, we put pump fuel in it. And we did it and rode it as which was really cool.
Oh my God, that
first time.
So I think even before you before we're going to go down your first lap and your first experience, what have initially got you over to England? What was that decision making? You were talking about your racing over there. You've done the Macau, you've done Asia.
Yep. Well, I was desperate to get to World Championship, and I'd spoken seriously to Claffey after the Macau. He was running World Supersport at the time, but I had to bring. And do you know who I spoke to? It was Jack Valentine too. Right. I had a really good chat to Jack. He was quite keen to get me over to have a go at. When he had the Triumph thing going, and huge respect for Jack. And I remember talking to him about it, but even just the cost, like the best I could hope for was sort of like get yourself over, accommodate yourself and put tyres on the bike. But I couldn't even afford to do that. When he gave me a rundown of how many tyres you go through. And
It's ridiculous.
I was like, I can't, like 3-1. I can't, we don't have the money. So I was tortured because I wanted it so bad. I just didn't know how to get it. Like I couldn't afford it. So yeah, that was and then Billy Barron, BTS Racing, he'd bought a couple of Suzuki's off one of the top Suzuki teams at the time. Then BSB, and then he said, come over and do a couple of rounds of British, get yourself over. So I come over and did Mondello back then, and then we did pretty good. So he said, come to Thruxton. So we went to Thruxton, and then that's what got me over here.
And that was on the Supersport bike?
Superbike.
Oh, so
First ever race in the UK was BSB Mondello. First ever race.
How did you fare?
We ended up, I think, in the podium in like the Privateer Cup.
Yeah, but that was really strong then. That was they don't have it now, but it wasn't a shit thing. It was a
riding out. I mean, I was a professional rider from Asia, but yeah, no, I'm heads. I've still got a photo of like coming around a corner with who was it? Kageyama was riding at the time, or one of them. Yeah, like both like knee down, straps, both on Suzuki's. Really cool photo. Joking. Yeah, I was just sticking it up the inside of him there. I think he was probably lapping me for the second time or something. But I wasn't over saying that. There was Stephen Thompson that came on to race the TT. Stephen, he was riding as my teammate that weekend, and I fired it up the road quite early, did quite a bit of damage. And I'll never forget to this day, he said, look, kid, you've come a long way. I'll step out, you ride my bike. He may have been struggling a bit that weekend, but he gave me, and I wouldn't have got a chance to race if it wasn't for him, because we were teammates both in BTS, because he was just down the road from them in Antrim, Northern Ireland. So I'll never ever forget that bit of generosity. And then, so we did quite well, enough for those guys that were struggling privateer team to say, hey, 2 weeks is Thruxton, let's go and do that too. You know, and we did quite well over there, actually.
And what did you do when you came to England? Were you just like sofa surfing in people's houses and stuff?
Absolutely. Well, we were. I was with the team, so we were just camping in the truck.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, like, turning up to the BSB paddock. Mondello was big. Thruxton was just like, you know, to see John Reynolds and the Ducati team and all these, you know, like I was really just like, whoa, check this out. Yeah. So, you know.
The Honda thing then in like 2003 and 4 was like proper factory Honda, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And but I mean, to step straight into Superbike, to be honest, I was that young. Wasn't young, so I was in my 20s, but I was that confident. I was like, well, here we are, let's do it. But when I look back, I think, man, yeah, it was a big step.
Big thing, yeah.
But but from there, TT, and then came back, and all of a sudden, yeah, basically the rest is history, because I came over and rode as a newcomer, and then really set the seed to go road racing. I got dicked around. I was meant to go and do German and a couple of rounds of Supersport, the Dutch and German championship for a team in Holland, and we went over there and sort of did the deal, and then the goalpost moved. They started saying, oh, we need you to pay for this, need you to pay for that. And we've done
the usual stories.
Yeah. You wonder why Australians get a lot of rides, and a lot of it is because, you know, I guess, you know, we'll pay our way at times, or a lot of, you know, Australians too, we usually turn up on our own, don't bring a lot of baggage, usually ride all right. You know, speaking to team bosses over the years, we've got a lot of positives as Aussies sometimes, you know. But
what would you say your biggest positive?
And also another one is you don't have to pay them, and usually they go back the other side of the country and you never hear about them again. Yeah. Sometimes that's got a bit to do with it.
The BSB grid's going to be full of Aussies next year. Like, listen to Cameron Donald go, that's solid advice, actually. Just piss them up onto the boat and do what they are straight
So
away.
The check's in the mail. You know, they won't be able to afford to come back and chase it up anyway.
So that year that you did the TT here, then what year would that have been? Sorry.
My first year was 04.
As a newcomer, and then who did you ride?
No, sorry, newcomer here is 05. Yep, 05.
Okay. And then who did you ride for thereafter here? So into like 2006.
So 05 was a big step up. I went home. So basically, this was the deal. I was going back to do the Dutch Championship later in the year. I was going back to do 2 rounds for them as a test. I'd already come to an agreement to bring a mechanic to make me feel more at home. My best mate was come with me, blah, blah, blah. So there's 2 races later in the year. If you can get yourself over there to do them,
you're on.
You're on. Okay, yep, done. At the time, like, far out, how am I going to get 2 airfares? I was worried, trying to work on that. Right at that time, I got a call from a team called DMR Racing that had Richard Britton ride for them. He was a privateer Honda team from Southern Ireland that had really good bikes, transporter.
Yeah. They were like grey and red, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So he called and said, "Do you want to do the Ulster Grand Prix?" I'm like, "Oh yeah," and he goes, "I'll give you a couple of £1,000," and I'm like, "Yeah, sweet." So come over, flew my mate over. Now you imagine this. This is a true story. We turn up. The bikes had just been picked up from Richard. And I remember thinking, I don't know politics, I don't know anyone. I didn't know there'd been a fallout, but I got a bit of a clue when we picked the bikes up and two of the bikes didn't have tyres on the rims. They were in the truck without tyres. And I'm like, what? And like whoever they picked the bike up, like the people had actually taken the tyres off. Like, bless Richard. I don't know what happened behind the scenes. I always get along well with Richard. There'd been a fallout, and that's why he'd left the team. But all I know is me and my country boy mechanic Donnie that turned up was just like, rightio, we better go over these things with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, damn right, yeah.
There's something going on.
A bit weird. And hats off to whoever was involved. The bikes were fine, apart from not having tyres on them. So must have been a pretty messy split to think I'm not even giving them back with tyres on them.
Right,
so we turned up, but these bikes are like, they were sick. You know, they were so...
Proper things then.
Yeah. So that was, and we turned up and we did, and then it was like, let's go to, he goes, there's a race called Faheen, and we'll go down and do that. And this is another one. We start talking about, what are you doing home? Blah, blah, blah. I got that family's in transport. Can you drive a truck? Yeah. Could you drive the transporter down to Faheen? I'm like, yeah, sweet. We'll go down. We head off in this truck. We go down. This is a true story. You imagine this, right? Never done a national road race. Turn up. We're driving down this, trying to read a map. Didn't even have a mobile phone over here, trying to read a map, and we pull up to a guy in a tractor, this old paddy, and we're like, where's the racetrack? And he's like, you're on it, son. And we're like, you're shitting me. I'm just peeking out where I'm going to even turn this truck around because the road was so narrow. This is true. And we get in the paddock, and that was my first ever race. And it was so funny because, got to bring this back, million stories. I'm sitting at the airport the other day, and someone talked about, Cam Donald, great rider, was winning from the minute he touched ground in Ireland. And Ryan Farquhar, great mate, arch battle back then. He chips in the other day and goes, no, you'll find he wasn't winning from the first race. And he's bloody screenshot and posted 2 freaking result sheets from that race then. And I'm like, God, Jesus, Ryan, you got too much time on you. And it's 14. And I was second to him in the Superbike race. And when I look at some of the names then, or second or third, I don't know, I better not misquote it, Ryan will correct me, but when I look back at it, it was like, jokes aside, so I was straight.
That's what I mean, that home, so at this point, we're talking about you could do the homework a little bit around the TD and stuff like, but you've tipped up a Faheen. Ever done, you were literally walking
never
around
done a national road race. And I'm just saying to my mate, like, dude, like I remember when we went to Mid-Antrim too, and he's like, how's it handling? And I'm like, it's doing this, it's doing that, it's doing that. And he's like, right, let's get in the car and do a lap. I've got to see this track. We finished the lap, and I remember he just looks at me and he goes, I know how it'll handle better. If we park the thing and put you on a motocross bike. He goes, I can't make a bike handle around this place. He's like, just ride it. No, but you want, because we want to talk the crack, you want to hear a funny story about my mate, because he's a wild boy.
Go for it, right, go for it.
We're, so
this is good.
We're laying in the race truck, and he's come rolling into the truck, pissed as a parrot, early hours in the morning, the night before the race after practice. And I'm like, what are you doing, you dick? And he's like, you're not going to believe what I just did. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, what have you done? What have you done? And he's like, I'm standing in the bar. And he goes, these couple of Sheilas come up to me and they're like, we know who you are. You're that new Aussie rider. You're Cameron Donald. Because I'd gone like front row in qualifying or something and made a big impression. Everyone was talking about, who's this new Aussie kid? And he's fuck yeah, that's me. And he goes, so I've taken this bird back to her, John. I'm like, no, you haven't. And he goes, yeah. And I kept saying, say my name. And she's like, yes, Cameron. And he goes, you better stick it on the box tomorrow, mate, because if she sees you stand up there, there's going to be one confused bird.
That's the best story we've had on the pod ever, I think.
100%. Oh, no, it gets better. It gets better because years later when I'm riding for, I think, Taz, I'm standing in the pit at the Ulster Grand Prix and these Irish lads, big boys, come up and they're like, Cameron. I'm like, how you going, boys? And they're like, good. And they're like, funny story about you years ago. And then one of the boys goes, your mechanic rode my sister. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like waiting to get a left hook or something. And these boys thought it was great crack, threw a couple of high fives and off they went with a poster.
Oh my God. With a poster.
True story.
Call me.
With all due respect to everyone involved, but that is
That's so good.
Am I allowed to tell a story like that?
Yeah,
It wasn't me.
Mate,
It was
we
him.
want more of them. We could just.
But that was pretty funny. So we were just like living the dream, you know. But anyway, it was then we went back up before the Ulster had even happened. I get a call from this team. Oh, when you turn up, could you transfer some money? We need to pay some tyres, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, once you show what you can do and all this sort of stuff. And there's a guy called Kevin Curtin. He finished second, I think, World Supersport Championship. Like, he's a gun, and he was riding for Yamaha Germany, and he was over there. I didn't know Kev that well, but I chased him up and rang him and said, hey, who are these guys? And he goes, dude, if they're asking you to put money up before you're on the bike, just walk away. So I did.
This was the Dutch German.
Yeah, so there I was.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, and I went to the All-Star. We podiumed one of the races on the Saturday that was for the, like, is it not a newcomers race, but I can't even remember. But we were there and we're on it, and we made a big enough impression that we got the Yul Duncan, Wilson Craig conglomerate at the time. They just bought 2X. They bought Laverty Supersport bike, Carl Harris's Superbike from Honda UK. At the end of the year, and
when Wilson Craig was like running a proper team.
It was really the Yul Duncan Robinson Concrete then, and so Robinson Concrete Superbike. Wilson Craig was the 600s, all run by Yul Duncan, an ex-rider from Northern Ireland.
Right.
Ex-Team Honda bikes. Do you want to come out? And I've been trying so hard on the circuits. I was that burnt out already with that. And I'd gone and done a couple of roads. Great crack. Everyone's having fun. Pocketed some prize money. And I was like, it's a no-brainer. I'm going back to do a year on the roads. And they promised we'll do a couple of British, which we did. And I was like, yep, that's me. And there I was road racing. And yeah, going on a million miles an hour. So I came back here. When I think back, and I'm not trying to blow my own bags here. Like, I came back, second year at the TT, first year on a superbike. And I'll never forget, the bike didn't have an electric start. That was a big thing, because when it got heat soak, it didn't want to fire. So we were shitting ourselves in the pit stops.
Thinking you're going to bump it.
Yeah, and in the senior, I broke the lap record at 128.5. John pipped it by another 2 seconds, and I finished second to John in the senior. My first ever superbike senior, my first year. When I look back at that now, I'm more proud of that than 128.5 in 06. First year on a superbike, second year here. And when I look back, I was like...
There's no one doing that.
No.
And I'm not going to compare, but just what I did. Like, it was just... So then, and I had teams contact me straight away. No, I'm staying with Yul Duncan. Those guys, they've given me the break. I'm going nowhere. So this is my whole career into 2 minutes. Next year, go back, get to the Northwest. Honda Superstock bikes did nothing then. Nothing in 07. Centenary TT. Went P1 Superstock at the Northwest on the Honda. We had an unmarked tyre or something, got put to the back of the grid. It was a technicality. Never forget, I was going to start the Superstock race at the back of the grid, and I'll never forget Hutchie came up and he's like, mate, TT's in 2 weeks. You can't do nothing from back here.
Don't bother.
And I didn't even answer Ian. I just was like, and I was on a mission, and I got up to whatever I was up to, 6th place or something, fastest lap. And coming out of the chicane, the last chicane, high-sided, off the curb, compound fracture, broken ribs, missed the Centenary TT. Got signed. Then I went to, which was hardest thing doing, because leaving that team was like leaving family, because stood by me when I had a broken. Oh yeah, also going down to Faheen, that same little road race where Ryan had beat me. Fired it up the road on a damp track, bike followed me in, I broke 3 vertebrae in my back. So that was a pretty big injury. So I'm in Northern Ireland, a long way from home, broken back. I'm just like, when we'd end up with that. But the guys really stood by me, helped me get home. They got me a business class ticket so I could be more comfortable for the flight. I couldn't fly for over a month because I had 3 broken vertebrae. I got home, came back in 07, then smacked Poleaxe myself before the TT, came here to the Centenary TT. My family had come over, never seen anything. Like my mum, dad, grew up separately from my mum and dad, but they both came over, like all his family came over, and I freaking Poleaxed myself. So I did miss the Centenary TT.
Would that have been your dad's first CT as well?
Yep.
Never.
Yep. So, but the good thing was I get to go and watch with him. So that's pretty
there
cool.
we are.
That's pretty cool,
That's cool.
So anyway, 07, then signed for Taz. Came back in 08. Rest is history. 2 TT wins in 08, leading the senior before we had a mechanical. So when I look back at where it was going, then in 09, Suzuki changed the bike and it was a shitbox. And it just didn't work all through practice, and it was the end of practice week. When think about that now, distributor back team, old Hector, Neil, Philip's dad, was like, get the K8 out of the truck. We've still got it there. It's ready to race. And Philip's like, we're Team Suzuki. How can we step?
Backwards.
You can't. And Hector was like, well, we either finish nowhere or we win. What does Suzuki want? We'll come up with an excuse. Just put him out for a lap. At least the kid will be able to come in and tell us what's wrong with the new bike after doing a lap on the old one.
Exactly.
So I hadn't ridden that old one since she'd overheated at Macau, and she was a beautiful bike. And I went out, and as I was leaving pit lane, Denver, that was working for me on my crew, said to me, she's got a full tank. If it feels good, stay out for 2. And that's when I did it was the first ever 131 mile an hour lap, unofficial because it was in practice.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that was 09 on the old bike.
So you know when you returned back to the Isle of Man second year, 128 mile an hour.
Yep.
How hard was it getting to those 131s? Was it
straight away? And I did. I missed 07. I came back in 09 and I did 131 mile an hour lap straight away in practice.
How different was that for you? No, you know,
after riding the K9 sled, jumped back on the K8, it was a piece of piss. Like, and I mean that, like, and I'm not trying to undermine it, but I was just like, I'm like, yeah, we're going to win. We're only here to win. But back then, man, the intensity I had, like I've said it over and over again, you know, I'd get up in the morning and I'd have a shower. I'd look in the mirror and say, right, today's as good a day to die as any other. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Love that.
Like, look at this now. Look at the goosebumps. Yeah. What the I don't want to die.
Yeah.
No, but
yeah, I was saying, you could ask me, you know, still Taz, Cinetic BMW, now team boss. I was intense, but it was good, you know. I had the ingredients. I came over from Australia. I had no one with me. I had no baggage.
Yeah.
I talk about that in the best possible way, but I was so focused on the job at hand. And then, anyway, 09 TT. So that was Thursday night. Did that lap. Everyone was talking about it. Friday, been a bit of rain, and Philip and I, we sort of come up with this idea. We're not even going to go out Friday night. Just going to roll up to the grid for the Superbike TT Saturday. Just going to do the heads clean in. He said, can you handle a night off the bike? I'm like, yeah, sweet. I was just like, so why go out? There's damn patches. I'm not going to just save it. He said, you need more laps? No. So, and then it wasn't until just before the practice session, Friday night, someone come up with the idea, why don't you do a lap on the stock bike? Just have a look at the track, stretch your chain, bed the brake pads in for Monday. So I was like, yeah, okay. And I remember taking off in 2s or after, anyway, I caught Connor. I was on track with Connor. He was on the McAdoo Superbike. We're going at a fair clip, but I stuck with Connor most of the lap. And then I come up over the mountain. Of course, I was back on the 09 stocker and I sort of let him go, decided I'll just finish the lap. You know, when I say rolled it off, not pushing with intensity, came into Keppel Gate, missed a gear. And as I tipped in, I was like, shit, I'm a gear high, I'm running wide. And that was it was the year before they put the rectisil barrier in. It used to be grass right down near the edge of the road. And I looked up and I just saw, at the time, it looked like I'll just pick it up and run off onto the grass. I'll never forget. I picked it up and the minute I hit the grass, I was like, flip, what am I thinking? I'm going so quick. And I only went about, 30 feet, hit a hole, cartwheel, dislocated my shoulder, airlifted that was 09, that was gone. So that was the end of, So things went, that was, and I never really, a lot of water under the bridge, ended up back in Wilson Craig on Hondas. And, we did good. The Honda, I had another couple of, I don't know how many seconds, several, I think 11 podiums all up.
Yeah, that's a lot of,
but never really found that, that shoulder fracture dislocation injury stuffed me up for a long time. That took a long time to recover from that.
Yeah.
That shoulder injury was nasty. And do you know what hurt me more than anything? Being homesick, always wanting to get back to Australia as soon as possible. It screwed me because I'd be back home and I'd be getting told, the Wilson Craig bikes, they're built, they're ready to roll. We're doing this, we're doing that. And I'd turn up the week before and I'm like, what? They're not ready? You do the first test and nothing's working. And don't get me wrong, I had some great times with Wilson Craig. He put a huge amount into the sport and we achieved a lot. But it probably would have been the same with any team, where you guys are over here and you'd be like, I spoke to the mechanic the other day. The bikes haven't arrived.
So
like, I didn't know.
There, looking at them.
I'm over the other side of the world. And it was always like, come over early and do a few races. I'd be like, no. I just missed home too much, I think.
Yeah.
So that really was the worst thing where, mates like Jason Halloran and whatnot just picked up, come over and just, lived here. That, I think my career would have been different, but hey, regret nothing, life was too good back home, having a good time. So it was, but that shot me in the foot a bit. But anyway, that was my TT career in a nutshell. There you go.
So what was your last year then?
I don't know, 16?
16.
Yeah. So basically, I kept thinking it was a numbers game. I was pushing so hard, and I was really worried that I couldn't keep going the way I was going, because I was only here to win, like any other racer at the front, and I didn't want to make up numbers. I didn't want to do anything else but win. A couple of years with Wilson was hard yards, and then Kaz fell pregnant, and it was like, right, sweet, we're having a kid now. I don't have to race a TT. Yeah, I think I wanted to start a family because I knew that it'd make me do something different. Yeah. So then. And then the Norton thing started, and it was like, well, when Granny rang me, Mick Grant, rang me, he was like, look, this is a good gig, can earn some coin, don't have to get a race result, work with Norton. I come back to growing up around Pommy bikes, like, to tell Dad I'm going to be riding a factory Norton, like, wow. Jeez, I'll be taking that down to the Velocet Club, like, he's like, and I'm not joking, that's what he was doing. Like, I was always into British bikes, so it was a massive thing to do that. So we did that with Norton. We're going to ride for them, and then what I thought would be an easy thing turned into a bit of a nightmare because the thing was an absolute sled.
And everything therefore after it just went on a landslide of snowball effect
of shitness. Yes. And then
it's a shame that, because
it's a shame for everyone involved.
Yeah, exactly.
3-year deal with Norton. After the second year, it's like, this isn't happening. Wilson had been badgering me the whole time, come back. And I thought, the way I'm riding, I can come back and get a result. No dramas. So jump back on the Honda, and then we had a couple of mechanical failures in practice week. And that last one, like, we grenaded an engine going through McGuinness's on the superbike. And when I look back, I was really lucky to get away with that one.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's where I lost my nerve. Well, you can say it. I lost my nerve. I was just like, nah, I got a little kid in the paddock, and I was really lucky to get away with that one. And it was just like, nah.
Did you race that week then, or did you just go?
Nah, we had mechanical issues. Yep. So it was just like, hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I sat up, just cried at night because I was just like, I want it, but I don't want it. I want it. I got my little girl here. It's heavy shit, man.
Yeah.
It's freaking heavy duty,
It's good that you can be so honest with yourself about that, because I think a lot of people
would bullshit their way through that.
Live in denial a little bit over it.
Yeah, a lot of riders do, and I've just always been honest with myself. You have to be, and it was just like, that was intense, and I can't imagine what I put Kaz through that weekend, because still thought, I knew, whatever, it's the same thing, isn't it, of a result, but just didn't fall into place. And it's a shame too, because Clive Padgett gave me a crack on the 600s, and Clive was amazing. He saw what that Norton did to me. He saw how it beat me down.
Yes.
And he was trying to build me back up, and I just wasted fuel and tyres on that bike because I was just, my head was gone, and I needed to build back. And that's why this place is such a confidence game, and I've learnt so much about racing. I learned so much about myself racing at the Isle of Man. And it's funny because even last night, now with an old head, and I'm not that old, man, I'm 45. Half the guys that are racing here now were racing before I started and are still racing. But I'm up there last night and I'm watching qualifying, and I look back and I think things like, don't get into a race between yourselves, guys, do this, do things that at the time you don't see because you're just buried in your own effort. You don't get a chance to step back and
look at it from a different perspective.
You can't see the forest and the trees. So I really enjoyed the aspect and that's why I love my commentary, because I love trying to share that with people now.
And is that like for filling the gap? Because one of my questions before you went and explained was, do you miss it? But you've explained that, and now is commentating really scratching an itch?
It did. It eased me off it. It probably kept me from doing something. I don't know what I would have done, whether I would have, I joke about turning into an alcoholic. I'm a conqueror. I'm pretty much one anyway. Beers at Smoko, which actually happens. But that's all good. It's just but it did help wean me off it, because I wouldn't have come back to the TT. I would have given it a few years. Like, I look at my brother, he stopped racing and he didn't really want to come and help me or be involved, probably because it hurt him. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to be on the hedge. I'd be back now. I just would have given it a couple of years, and I'd be back now on the hedge with an esky full of cold cans with mates, cheering them on.
Yeah.
But I got the opportunity, the commentary job. I jumped in head first. Once again, that made me step out of my comfort zone. It was exciting, and it did. It filled the
bit of a void.
It did, and it was a great way to wean myself off the event. And I did have thoughts a couple of times. Maybe I'll,
Yeah.
But then
have a spin on something.
Yeah, and then you're going out to race and they've got the board up, damp patches and this, that, and you're like, you can have it.
What about the Manx?
Yeah, well, I
about
came
the
back
classic?
and did the classic a couple of times. We ended up on the box, and it's loved it. It was, once again, what stopped me with the Manx many years is people contacted me, ride this awesome bike, there's going to be no time to test it. If I'm coming here, I'm coming to get a result. And at the Manx, I always about riding something different every year.
Yeah.
Like I did a G50, then I did the 350 Manx, because these are bikes I grew up hearing about.
You want to
I want to tick that box.
Yeah.
The classic superbike didn't really interest me that much.
Yeah.
But if it was a good, but if it was a good bike, but I want to test it and I want to know it. Like the amount of times I see guys turn up here, they've never ridden it till practice. It's not the way to ride around the Isle of Man.
No, I can imagine that.
I understand it's what happens, but yeah, so that's why I didn't.
Fair play.
But I still haven't ruled out the classic. There's bikes I'd like to come back and ride. If it happens, it happens.
If anyone's out there, give Cam a go. I'll tell you what, we've got some fantastic Patreon. I'll tell you what, we're definitely coming back for the classic, and I feel like we want to get you back on because there'll be people listening to this going, we haven't asked this, you haven't asked that, and
ask away.
You've got work to go back to and everything like that. But we've got some fantastic Patreon questions. But I'm going to nick one from Josh here, but it's fantastic. It's from Dean Tulloch. Your daughters tell you they want to become road racers. What do you say to them?
Oh, go for gold. Like my two kids, they're 4 and 9. They're both riding moto now. You know, my missus Kaz, she rode women's motocross. She rides street bikes. She rode bikes. You know, she vowed she'd never date a racer. They're all wankers, and
we are. And
yeah, I know. She ended up with me. So you know, what hope have the kids got? In saying that, you know, my missus is she's a hippie too. Like, you know, she lives an amazing life and creates an amazing family for us. Awesome. And we're all about living a good life and experiencing nature. And, you know, we go camping, we live on a river, we go canoeing, we do that. We drink a lot of beer while we're doing it, but it's a good balance. But we've got motorbikes. Yeah. The kids, my miss was very good at ball sports, quite talented at basketball, softball stuff. I never did any of that. So my daughter's now, she's starting to show a lot of talent in basketball. A million kids do. But we're not like moto. I said I want my kids to be screaming for it because I had to. So, and they would. They showed an interest. So, well, okay, here's an offset. And they ride them, and now here's a little Toro electric bike, and they ride them, started doing some trials. Now Lola's got a KTM 50, and she's like, Dad, I want to ride the 2-stroke. And they've got some talent, as do a million kids. You know, there was a dirt track practice the other day. Lola was going to ride, and then the basketball schedule was changed. And the worst thing was, we said to her, you make a decision, and go into a room and she's sitting there crying. Like, what's wrong? And she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. It's like, I was the one that said, just play basketball. You've got a team. They rely on you.
That's fair enough, actually.
And I'm just there's time, you know. And she's been chosen now to do like rep, squad, step up in basketball. My missus is like, no, she's playing one game a week, one training. It's enough. We'll just keep them grounded, you know. You don't need to grow up too quick. I don't want to push them into that. So they got bikes, you know. They get dropped to school sometimes in a sidecar. You know, pick Lola up on the back of the Harley regularly. Like, we live and breathe it. Living the dream. They'll be there. The main thing is they've got a paddock to ride in, and they've got bikes when they want them.
Class.
And we'll see what the future brings.
Yeah, it's actually really refreshing to hear that, because I've mentioned this before on the pod about especially kids in our sport that are like forced to grow up too quickly. And it's getting younger and younger every year for lads and girls getting into the sport. So that's actually really refreshing. Yeah, I think this is a really, really good question.
Go for it.
This is from... Oh no, hang on. I've gone back to the
anonymous.
I've gone to the wrong question. Hang on, sorry, I've clicked off it.
Why is your mum no.
Oh yeah, sorry. This is from Aaron Hands, and he's put, it's the senior 6-lap race. You're on lap 5, and you need to make 5 seconds up on the last lap. What past or current bike, doesn't have to be one that you've ridden, are you picking, and why?
K8 Suzuki, because I do it.
I like that.
Excellent.
I like that.
I thought that was like a very good question. And there's an audio one. Do you want me to play?
Ooh, that was a bit heavy.
Go for the audio.
I look back and I'm like, you understand riding the TT. What? Oh man, when I had it, it was so beautiful.
Oh,
you know, like when you're like, you get that like, you know, you get that P2, P1 plus minus, and you're just like, some of the things you do around here, when you're drifting it up over the mountain, those speeds, and you're charging down, and you're like, it's just, oh man, it's sex on wheels, you know. It's so flipping good.
When it clicks.
When it clicks. If only you could just turn that tap on when you choose to, you know.
Yeah. But I've heard you talking about it, like, obviously a lot, like, when we've been together, and then obviously over the years you've heard everyone. This is the first time I've been here. I couldn't even put it into words. It's like unbelievable. The first night I sat on the bank and watched it, I said this on the last one, I would give every single thing that I own to have just been riding a bike there.
Yeah.
And I totally, everything everybody's ever said, you just totally understand it in like 1 second. And that's just watching it.
It's just
amazing.
I love how honest you've been through this, because people don't realise how frustrating this place can get. Because when things aren't quite right or things aren't just flowing, it can really tear you down. But then you get that other side that is, like Cam's just explained. It's just that click. It's just like that.
Yeah,
we're off. You know,
and then you watch the onboard, you watch your helicopter, and it looks so beautiful and it looks so calm. When you're in the middle of it, it's terrifying. You know, and it's just like a barroom brawl.
Yeah.
I love it. Have you got an audio question?
There's an audio question here, so
get it slapped on there.
I don't think it's been.
Just a little bit. Just let a bit of fresh air in, just for a minute.
I don't think
that's not going to mess us up.
Nah, it's all good. The lighting's even better. I love it.
Hi team, hi Cam, sniffing skid marks here. Cam, as a rider of one of the most inspirational, recognisable liveries with a relentless Suzuki, still looks pretty smart today. If you had to choose any bike, classic, modern or otherwise, to do one last hurrah around the mountain course,
I think we know.
Which bike and which livery would you choose and why? And second question, love a nickname. You're known as on your Facebook and whatnot as Cam the Concreter. We obviously got Dom the Bomb, Muller Corner. If your friends were to choose a nickname now for the back of your leathers, what would it be and why?
Oh, that is good.
Ooh,
what nickname would you have on the back?
Yeah, it'd have to be the Relentless Suzuki, and it did look horned, that thing.
Oh, mate.
Even better the first year when I had brown as well. It was so different. And then I went to all black, but it was still like, I've kept a bunch of merch. I've still got it at home. I can't let go. It's just...
I do not blame you one bit at all.
Nicknames, I don't know. That's a tricky one. I don't know. I know what my mates... Yeah, I don't know what they'd say. Be something, but...
Screaming right now.
Tight ass. But, yeah, no, I don't know. That's a difficult one. I don't know. Nickname.
It's hard to pick your own
Maybe
nickname.
Put it out to you. Yeah, I've been joking about that lately. Cam the Concreter. That's got a bit of legs to it because I've been hashtagging all my concrete jobs.
Got to be done.
So that's yeah, that'd be a good one. I wish I got to concreting earlier. Actually, it's not bad money in it. I might have kept racing a bit longer.
And I've got one final one. It's great. This is from MJ. She's Erin even. She's from the Isle of Man. Me and my dad always see you at the ice cream van. What's your favourite ice cream?
Oh, choc mint.
Choc mint, straight up.
I love it all the time. My kids are constantly like, something different, something. I'm like, okay, I get to the front of the queue. I'm like, choc mint. They're like, no. It's actually working with Grace this week. She was saying the other, how can you eat choc mint? It's like toothpaste, you know? And I'm like, oh, I was the biggest fan of Grace. I'm devastated. She doesn't like choc mint ice cream. What's wrong with the lady?
She's off the Christmas card list. I love it. Absolutely love it. But I'm really conscious about the time on this side of things.
No, that's all right. We're cool.
No, but we're going to have to wrap this one up, but we will be back for the Manx. Are you back at the Manx?
All going well. I think I am. It's a long way from home. So if we're needed here, we'll be here, and hopefully we'll be. Hadn't been for a while. Came back last year. It was absolutely brilliant and really great working with the Manx riders. So, or the Manx, racers. Yeah, so it's good to see like Stephen Smith winner last year here this year, first year at a TT.
Yeah, definitely.
Sort of trying to help him along a bit, which is really neat too. So there's a lot of great people there.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Well, I tell you what, got any more questions, Josh, on this side of things?
Millions, but we'll be here for another 3 hours.
We're easily done. But
it's been a pleasure.
We'll definitely get you back on. But honestly, thank you so much for your time, and it's just absolutely class. But obviously, a bit of in-house tidying up. Thank you to all our patrons: Colchester Kawasaki, Bennett, Alan Garner from OMG Racing, and yeah, Josh, you've done all right on this one. So thank you very much, man. I'm joking with you, man. But no, thank you so much, Cam, and we'll catch up with you soon, man.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you
to see you all at the circuit.
Yeah, you and me both.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Chasin the Racin, powered by Colchester Kawasaki, part of the Global Moto Group. We supply new Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Sim, Mutt and Benelli motorcycles.